This is Brandon with Fleet Feet, and today I've got a very exciting shoe for you all, and that is the second version of a very popular Brooks shoe, the Brooks Hyperion Max 2. Now, the Brooks Hyperion Max, of course, is on its second version. And the first one was a step in the right direction for Brooks. Brooks is a company that is constantly trying to innovate and evolve, and you could see that through the Max series that they've come out with. But it didn't really feel like the first model of the shoe was quite there yet and just needed a little bit more polishing and a few adjustments. I can confirm that Brooks did answer to a lot of those calls in the Brooks Hyperion Max 2. The first model of this shoe had a pretty low stack, so the idea of it being a Max shoe was a little bit conflicting for some people, but overall, a lot of people did enjoy the lower stack and denser foam feel that came with the first model of the shoe. This shoe is mainly designed to be an up-tempo daily trainer. It is best for those consistent miles and long run days. So if you're looking for a training companion that's not gonna let you down, the Brooks Hyperion Max 2 is really the way to go. But before we go any further, we would really appreciate if you gave this video a like and subscribe to the channel to stay updated with all of our videos that we have coming down the pipeline. Now, moving on to the upper. The upper is made up of a mesh upper, which is very light, it's very breathable, it has a thin and stretchy tongue, it has a gusset to it, and it has thin padding around the heel collar. And one other thing that I really want to note is these rigid laces here, which really help to just keep your foot locked in and in place when you lace up the shoes. A lot of the time when you're running, laces can start to get a little bit loose. Well, these rigid laces allow for a little bit more of a locked in and dialed fit. Brooks isn't the only company to be implementing rigid laces in a lot of their performance shoes. Other shoes like Nike and Asics have been doing them as well. That little bit of extra ridging around the laces really just helps with a nice dialed in fit. One of our reviewers, Kate, had a lot to say about the upper of this shoe, and she just felt like it was very dialed in. She found that the midfoot is snug, the toe box is nice and roomy for her foot, and she really enjoyed the lightly padded heel collar and the flare that you get here at the end so that there's no issues with friction for the Achilles. And for her, this shoe fits true to size. And just adding on to Kate's point, this shoe did fit true to size for me, and one of the first things that I thought about when I put the shoe on was how well it fit. And right from there, I knew that this shoe was going to be a very good one. And overall, I'm really enjoying the look and aesthetic of this shoe. You look at this shoe and you just think fast. You've got this orange and red that just feels like a fiery, fast, moving forward. It just speaks to speed, which is something I really like. At times, I've questioned Brooks and their aesthetic and some of their different models and colorways, but this one is just great. And I really like the ode to the Brooks logo here on the inside of the shoe while still having the standard traditional logo on the outside of the shoe. The colorways just really go together well. Very simple yet effective, and it speaks to the fast speed of the shoe, which I think is great. And if you're wondering whether this shoe is gonna fit for you, you can go check it out at a local Fleet Feet store, go through the Fit ID process, go get your foot scanned to go see what shoe fits best for you. Moving down to the midsole. Now, the midsole is made up of a nitrogen infused DNA Flash V2. Nitrogen infused basically just means that they get this midsole, which basically is like a small pocket first, and they infuse nitrogen into that foam and expand it out into what you see here, this whole midsole. Then they carve it, they shape it, and they basically decide to control how much nitrogen they're gonna put in it, which is then going to control how stiff the shoe is gonna be, how soft it's gonna be, which are all parameters that Brooks is thinking about when they're creating a shoe like this one. Now, the drop of the shoe comes in at 6 millimeters, and the midsole height is 30 millimeters in the heel and 24 in the forefoot. But Brooks did note that this is just the midsole height, not the stack height. The stack height of this shoe, which includes the insole and the outsole rubber, so everything about the shoe, comes in at 36.25 for the heel and 30.25 for the toe. So that is a big difference just with the added outsole rubber and the thick insole that you have here. You're just going to get a more elevated feel than the first model. This one really speaks more to the traditional higher stack feeling of a Max shoe for Brooks. Nate actually had a lot to say about the midsole. He says for an up-tempo daily trainer or a shoe like this to really feel feel super, it needs to not only feel super, but it needs to look super as well. And while he felt that the shoe was very responsive, it was just a touch or two softer than that of the first model. I agree with Nate. I think that this shoe is definitely softer than the last model, but it is still a stiff shoe in general, and Brooks intentionally does that to make a more responsive feeling shoe. Moving down to the outsole, which has a nice rocker feel to it with a traditional rubber coverage on the outside and then a little bit of a gap here for some cutout for saving weight. I had no issues with the traction of this shoe. The rest of our team seemed to have no issues with it as well. In terms of rubber, this is actually one of the thinner rubbers that I've seen from Brooks. Usually Brooks has very thick rubber outsole lugs, especially on their daily trainers, but right now in the Hyperion Max 2, they've gone with a thinner rubber, which I really like. Moving on to the ride and performance of this shoe. Caroline is actually coming back from an ankle injury, so when she was testing this shoe, she was a little skeptical whether it was going to work for her. But she actually found that the firm foam made it easy for her to stay stable on foot when running in this shoe, so she had no issues with any ankle wobbling. She found that the foam just really made it easy for her to pop off of the ground. She didn't have to work as hard, so that was something that she really liked about the foam. And one of the things that she really liked about the shoe was just how light it is. From what I can tell from when I was running in it, it definitely felt like a light shoe. The ride and performance of the shoe is a major upgrade from the last model, and the integration of a P-Bax plate in this shoe really just allows for a more enhanced ride. Brooks has integrated a P-Bax plate for more stability and more of a rigid feel, but not one that is too aggressive like what you would see in a race day shoe. And this foam is one of the best yet, maybe my favorite from Brooks so far. And Brooks has been moving into this realm of nitrogen infused foams for a while now, and they typically feel very firm, very dense, and pretty stiff on foot. And you know me, I like a more soft and cushioned shoe, but this one actually really worked for me. Even though the shoe was stiff, it was stiff in all of the right ways, and that it was very responsive, and it still felt soft enough for me. And while this shoe is stiff, it still felt softer than a lot of the rest of the other performance models that I've tested. This is probably the best running shoe from Brooks that I've tried. Like Caroline said, I do find that this shoe is very lightweight. This shoe actually comes in at 8.1 ounces and 229 grams for the women's model, and 9.1 ounces and 257 grams for the men's model, making it a very lightweight, up-tempo daily training option for you to pick from. The shoe comes in at $180. Other shoes that you can expect to fit into this range are the Hoka Mach X, the Saucony Kinvara Pro, and the New Balance SC Trainer V2. And if you want to get your hands on the Brooks Hyperion Max 2, you can go into your local Fleet Feet store and find it there, or you can look online at fleetfeet.com. And if there are other shoes that you want us to review, or if you want us to compare the Brooks Hyperion Max to another shoe, make sure to leave that in the comments below and we'll get back to you. If you still want to learn more about this shoe, you can check it out on the blog at fleetfeet.com, where you can hear the thoughts about the shoe from the rest of our review team. Make sure to subscribe here on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, on Strava, and wherever else we might be.